Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Clément Farabet. I'm a VP of AI infrastructure at NVIDIA. My primary mission at NVIDIA is to lead the development of our MLOps platform to enable autonomous vehicles, AV. I will use the term AV throughout this talk multiple times to refer to autonomous vehicles, so bear with me on that. Today, I'd like to give you a sense of how we're developing AV at NVIDIA and the platform and workflows we're building to get there. Our AV stack at NVIDIA is heavily based on AI. 3D perception is the foundation of our stack. It relies on several end-to-end neural nets learning to encode and predict all sorts of relevant attributes from the environment surrounding the AV. The 3D position, orientation, and velocity of all surrounding objects, as well as the 3D description of all attributes on the road, like road markings, lanes, and so on. So you can think of this 3D perception as essentially powering the base of our stack and providing the AV stack with everything it needs to reason about its surroundings. The second foundation of our stack is mapping. We create maps that are based on the output of our 3D perception. These maps are in full 3D. And when we drive, we can freely decide to fuse maps and live perception or use one or the other depending on use cases and availability. Are the maps available or not? Default back to live perception. The key thing is that the maps themselves are based on the same 3D representation coming out of our perception stack. On top of this foundation, our planner makes use of prediction neural networks, which model the possible trajectories of objects in real time. Because the core of our AV stack is based so heavily on neural nets and the input space is very rich and diverse, most of our progress is completely determined by how good our data is, how well we're testing our stack at scale, and how much diversity of content and scenarios we can look at to prefetch what will happen in the real world. That leads us to essentially 3 central development loops that guide absolutely everything we do. These loops are what you're seeing on the screen right now. We need to nail all 3 loops to succeed at delivering AV at world scale. The first loop is what I call data-driven. So that loop starts from data collection campaigns. So on the road, we're organizing a fleet of vehicles to collect data to feed into our AI. We then ingest that data into our stack. We then consume that data to do 2 things: create maps and create ground truths for our AI development. And then we use those ground truths to essentially train our models, test our stack, and then ship that back to the fleet. The more we learn about what we collect, the more we train the systems, the more we can understand what deltas we have and further guide the data collection process. The second loop we have is what I call fleet driven. You can also think of that as essentially road test driven or on-road testing driven. So that loop starts with on-road testing of our AV stack. From that, we essentially collect all sorts of failure events. So when and where is the AV stack failing? We ingest those bugs, the logs, including the sensor data as well. And from that, we essentially triage the bugs and feed that into our development process for the team. So from that, the team can essentially look at the bugs and further improve the state of the stack, continuously improve the AV quality, and test the stack and deploy it back and repeat and repeat and repeat. And we do this over and over and over. The third loop is what I call scene-driven. So this one is about bringing up new deep neural nets and models entirely based on synthetic data, so in a purely simulated environment, as well as developing and testing our end-to-end AV functionality in a simulator. From that, we also typically create a lot of tests at scale that represent what we think the AV stack needs to perform in the real world. And then we also use this test to feed into the other loops because we want this test to be broadly used for everybody developing AV in the team. So these 3 loops really define everything we do. And throughout this talk, I'm going to talk about the platform we're building to enable these loops, as well as actually go over what we're doing to make these loops really awesome. So let's take a look at the platform first. Maglev is the code name that we're giving to this platform internally at NVIDIA. The 3 loops that I've just described have a few things in common. So things like, if you look at our data loop and our fleet loop, for instance, they both require ingesting data at scale from our fleet. And for that data to be available seamlessly for analysis, test creation, ground truth creation, map creation, and so on. They also have different requirements. For instance, our SIM-driven loop has a much bigger focus on integration between the heavy stack, the simulator, the infrastructure, enabling remote development on our cluster, live debugging tools. And I'll go back to that later on because we've got a lot of cool things to show there. Maglev itself is the platform that supports all of that. The platform itself is layered. At the bottom, we provide all the infrastructure you need to manage data as well as compute at scale. We provide batch and interactive support, so you can run workflows interactively on the cluster, but you can also run them as in batch mode to create scaled CI and workflows and those types of things. On top of that, we provide various UXs for users to interact with the platform. So some are graphical, some are via command line interfaces, and so on. Today, we'll just look at two things mostly, the data platform and the workflow system, which together give us the foundation to enable Software 2.0 type development. So what do I mean by Software 2.0? For applications like Heavy that are heavily based on AI, a great way to think of software development is what we now call Software 2.0 in the industry. In this new paradigm, data essentially replaces source code, and machine learning algorithms like neural networks can be thought of as compilers. So that's a really important analogy, right? In the traditional world in software development, we used to write code, and then we used compilers or interpreters to transform this code into something that the machine could run. And then you will have your binary that would run and execute the desired behavior. In this new world of AI-driven development, everything has shifted. We're using data pretty much as source code to essentially teach the systems what to do. And then we use algorithms like neural nets to essentially compile that data into a final predictor that will have the right behavior. In the Software 1.0 world, we reached great maturity in terms of tooling. Things like managing the code lifecycle have become completely trivial. We've got fantastic tools. Git was the last instance of that. And you've got platforms like GitHub, GitLab, and so on that really help you collaborate on code, have full versioning, traceability, and so on. In the world of Software 2.0, things are much, much trickier. And typically companies end up developing a lot of this tooling on their own. But we need an equivalent, right? We need a way for us to actually manage data in the same way we used to manage source code. So that's really what we're building as part of the Maglev data platform. You can think of that as a data monorepo where we're trying to manage the full lifecycle of data, including things like searching, tracking, versioning, traceability, and creating unit tests around data. A data monorepo wouldn't be anything without the ability to actually manipulate that data and ultimately compile it into final predictors that will be shipped as part of our products. So the companion to the monorepo for data is the workflow system. So in Maglev, we've developed a pretty extensive workflow system that lets us do everything we need. And you can think of it as the foundation for a build system for Software 2.0, basically. Compiling data sets into final predictors running in our Heavy stack isn't as simple as just running an ML training algorithm. You need much more than that. If you think through the entire pipeline, you need to essentially compose complex directed graphs of tasks ranging from pre-processing the data, transforming this raw data into good training data sets, getting them labeled, sampling them, curating them, training models out of that data, potentially training hundreds of models to actually select the best one, measure its performance on some out of sample data, and then finally potentially embed that model into the full Heavy stack and run the whole thing against the simulator to validate its behavior. So that's a lot of steps, and the more you can automate that, the more you can codify that, the less error prone the pipeline will be, and the more you can scale this whole development process. So Maglev Workflows is the foundation we built to enable the description of such complex workflows. In the most advanced settings, some tasks can be run on general purpose GPUs or CPUs like training, data processing, while some others like simulation may need to run on target embedded hardware to enable things like hardware in the loop validation. So all sorts of requirements in terms of scheduling these workflows. And lastly, we're also interested in having these workflows, just like data, be tracked, versioned, and essentially you want to handle them like code, right? So here's an example of multiple Maglev workflows, which once stitched together, describe a complete Software 2.0 pipeline. So that's that. You can think of that as a build process for AI, basically. We're starting from raw data at the left. On the left, we ingest that data. It goes through all sorts of steps to get transformed. There's a big training pipeline, potentially training multiple models. testing them on the way, and outputting some kind of final asset. And then there's an evaluation workflow that itself can lean on things like simulation and so on. So just taking a step back, I presented two things: the data platform and this workflow system. Put together with these two foundations, you've got a powerful platform that essentially enables Software 2.0 development. And that's what we use across our AV development process. Just a note on scale. So the platform we're developing not only has to efficiently enable these loops I described and Software 2.0 development processes, but it also has to do so at a considerable scale. And there's a few aspects to consider here. Number one is storage and data. So we're dealing with hundreds of petabytes of storage deployed to support all the influx of data that's coming from our fleet. The reason that it's so large is because the sensor platform on each vehicle is actually quite large. We're talking about 12 cameras, 10 radars, so a fairly rich sensor platform around the vehicle. And all those sensors have to be recording full time and be ingested into our system for further processing. We're dealing with 3 exaflops of compute, so massive GPU cluster, and this is growing every year. We're adding more and more flops. We never seem to see the end of that. So that has to be managed and seamlessly exposed to these workflows I described. We're dealing with producing north of hundreds of millions of labels a year. So that's across all the different types of signals that our AV stack needs to be able to learn. So lots of labeling. Even though we're trying to automate a lot of that process, the manual part of the label is actually still quite high. We're enabling thousands of users, so across the entire AV project, whether it's folks developing perception, prediction models, creating maps, the surface area is quite large. And finally, on the simulation and replay side, running tens of thousands of hours of virtual hours driven in the cloud every single day. So the deployment size is quite impressive, and so everything we're designing has to scale to these sizes. All right, so I talked a little bit about the platform itself. I want to go back to these loops. So I mentioned 3 of them. I'm going to start with the first one, the data-driven loop. So this is probably the most fundamental one because that's really the loop that powers AI development. It all starts with the data and ends with a perception stack that's fully trained on that data and deployed back to our fleet. As I described before, one of the tenets of Software 2.0 is the realization that data is the source code. And so the process of AI training is akin to compiling the source into a final predictor. And as such, that specific workflow is pretty much the most important one we want to nail. 2 things I want to discuss here: the way we organize data collection and the way we essentially build up these ground truth pipelines to produce a ground truth to train our AI models. On the data collection side, our approach to data collection is to essentially operate it as a full closed loop system. So we essentially continuously monitor the distribution of data we've collected and labeled, and automatically derive route plans from the delta between the distribution we've collected and the distribution we want. That distribution comes from mostly 2 places. One is static requirements from our product. We want our AV stack to operate well in rainy environments, in sunny environments, in different types of countries, in urban environments, in highways, and so on, as well as feedback from the AI team and metrics from the system. Is the system weaker in rainy environments? Is it stronger in sunny conditions? Based on that, we want to have this closed loop system that helps us automatically plan for routes and sends our fleet of vehicles in the most optimal places. Establishing a closed loop system like this is enabled by our Maglev platform, which lets us track this data and metrics throughout the life cycle of it. Now let's zoom into this end-to-end data factory that we've set up. So the reality is a little bit more complex than what I just showed in the previous slide. I think that slide really gives it justice. It shows you essentially our complete end-to-end data factory from the moment we request for data on the fleet to the moment we consume it into all the various algorithms, whether it's perception or map creation. And it shows you how complex this whole pipeline is. So it starts on the left side with route planning and data collection. Then there's a step of SSD shipping. And yes, because of the data volumes are so large and we're operating this fleet in more than 30 countries worldwide today, we've got a lean on essentially getting SSDs out of the car and shipping them through FedEx worldwide into our data centers, because it's the only high bandwidth solution that we really have at our disposal. Once the data is ingested, it goes through a common pipeline of integrity, calibration, the GPS testing. And from that point, we start creating scenes out of all this sensor data. And it then gets fed into multiple pipelines. One of the pipelines is the creation of maps and map ground truth. So for that, we create full ground truth of what the maps of the world, so the description of things like lanes, road markings, stop signs, intersections, and so on. We're really trying to come to a full representation of that. The other part is from that, creating a ground truth in image space. So in the surround visual space, we want to have ground truth for everything we see, whether it's these static attributes or the dynamic obstacles that we see. So things like vehicles, trucks, cars, and so on, and pedestrians crossing the street and so on. So the key bit here is that we treat this end-to-end process as an actual factory, meaning that we instrument every single step, whether it's for quality, for queue buildup or queue drainage. We really look at that as a factory, and on every single day, we want to be able to produce a certain amount of data at some quality threshold for each of these boxes. And it's the only way we can essentially really produce what we need to feed into our development process. So, a pretty complex system to get off the ground. And again, powered by that maglev platform we built. And there's also a very, very strong operational aspect here that's quite challenging to get off the ground. So this type of pipeline is really the backbone of a modern software 2.0 system. Here I'm showing what it looks like for an AV system, but many other industries for many other problems are going to have a similar pipeline. And it's usually the case that creating the right types of data sets is actually a huge challenge. Another note on scale, we power this pipeline with 3,000 in-house labelers today. So these are physical persons working on that in our data factory. So quite a bit of scale there. Thousands of GPUs just to support all these steps. And as I said before, hundreds of petabytes of data that we're storing and flowing through this system. I now want to focus on the ground truth generation pipeline, which is really, really exciting. So once the data has been ingested and is ready for consumption, what we're interested in doing is essentially creating a full ground truth representation of all the objects that we're going to be interested in predicting. So that's really a core piece of our entire stack here. The AI that we were training needs to have access to full 4D ground truth. And by that, I mean that every obstacle that can be sensed by any of the sensors on the Ego vehicle needs to be described by a 3D cuboid with the temporal behavior. So if you can produce that across multiple scenes, you then have what it takes to teach the system to predict the same thing. Our sensor platform called Hyperion currently has 12 surround cameras, 9 radars, and we use a rooftop LiDAR as well to accelerate this ground truth process. And what we essentially do is we stitch all cameras together into a cohesive representation. We align that to our LiDAR payload, and we use that fused payload to essentially produce tracked cuboids automatically from the LiDAR data. And then we use this manual process to correct them and make sure that they're fine-tuned and that the ground truth we end up with is solid for the ground truth. This is one of the many examples of how creative we have to be to produce the right data to train our AIs. A very exciting pipeline. And once it works, you essentially get a lot of ground truth at a fairly reasonable cost. And then the focus becomes on how diverse you can make the data sets and making sure that the fleet fits this pipeline the right way. The second loop I want to go to is the fleet-driven loop. So as I mentioned before, this one is all about on-road testing. It starts from on-road testing and then moves on to essentially ingesting our logs and data into our data center to enable things like triaging, the creation of tests that mimic what was observed on the road. So each time we have a failure, the ability to reproduce that failure, cloud side, create a test from it and add that test to our CI system. And ultimately enable the team to develop new solutions, new algorithms, or retrain our existing algorithms against those new failures to keep improving the state of things. This loop is actually multiple loops. And so if you look at the details of what we do in practice, there's actually quite a few different ways for us to interact with our fleet that's running the AV stack on a day-to-day basis. Here, I'll just focus on the two extremes. I'll pick the most inner one that we call dynamic here, or offline 2-minute as well, like those very tight loops that you see on the left side. So in this case, what we're interested in doing is essentially while the car is actually driving and testing and running our AV software, running our live drive debugger in real time next to it so that you can observe the behavior of the algorithms. On the lower left side, you see a screenshot of our debugger, which essentially shows a whole bunch of signals in real time. So things like, the acceleration of the vehicle, the braking signals, and in the middle, you see a full 3D representation of all the obstacles around the Ego vehicle. And based on that, you can get a sense of what the stack is seeing, thinking, and what it's trying to achieve. So that's the most real-time debugging we enable. Now, if you look at the most outer loop, the one at the very top, this one is basically we drive for a while, say for 2 to 8 hours. We do a lot of testing. We record absolutely everything, sensor data, as well as the logs predicted by our stack. We ingest everything into our data center. Once it's in our data center, we can run a whole bunch of analysis offline and at scale. Using the same type of tooling, same types of debugging tooling, except now we can group cluster issues like failures based on braking events and so on. And once you've grouped all these failures, you can do a lot of analysis and work that leverages AI and so on. In between, you get several variations of this debugging loop, but we basically have to enable them with the tooling and the platform we're building. All right, and next I'll jump to our third loop, which is the sim-driven loop. So that third workflow at a very high level is pretty simple to understand. Imagine that you replaced everything I just described before, the physical fleet of vehicles, all the ground truth pipelines, the manual labelers, replace all of that by essentially one simulator. Once you have this simulator, everything is going to come out of the simulator. So whether we're talking about data to train the models as well as ground truth, the actual end-to-end simulation of the stack to test it, debug it, create tests, everything is going to be based on a simulator. So why would we do that? Well, in a nutshell, NVIDIA has developed a simulator that's based on Omniverse, which provides photorealistic, real-time, ray-traced, and physically accurate simulation of environments. And so we're using that simulator to produce synthetic training data as well as end-to-end AV simulation for our team. So let's start with the data aspect first. As I said before, the simulator leverages RTX, which is NVIDIA's technology for real-time ray tracing, which helps produce amazingly accurate simulations of actual images. And it doesn't stop there. It actually fully models the entire photon pathway through the exact cameras we use in production, including glass, the sensor filter array, and so on. So it's basically pure magic. Like when you look at the results and how accurate the modeling is, it's pretty much mind-blowing. Now, what's so exciting about this is you can produce the type of ground truth I described before. So all the 4DGT pipeline I talked about, where we use the LiDAR and we do a lot of manual editing, well, you get all of that for free, basically. So let me repeat that, right? Once you can create environments and scenarios in simulation, all these ground truth, whether it's these 4D ground truth, 4D cuboids, or full pixel-wise accurate segmentation of the scenes, you get all of that for free because it's all programmatic. So the possibilities of that are quite endless. And since Software 2.0 is so driven by our ability to produce and acquire the right type of ground truth to train our systems, having access to a simulator like that is completely game-changing. So let's look at how we've leveraged this in our system. Here's one great example. Our team recently migrated our entire sensor platform from Hyperion 7 to Hyperion 8. So I'll pass the details, but in a nutshell, we essentially moved our cameras from 2 megapixel cameras to 8 megapixel cameras so we can see further. We also upgraded a bunch of these cameras to fisheye cameras so that they can be used for both actuation and top view type rendering for parking applications. So that type of migration is usually a huge challenge because even if you have historical data that can be reused, it still requires a lot of new data to be collected. It requires retuning the perception stack to adapt to these new sensors. And so that's why synthetic data generation is such an amazing tool. With it, our team was able to immediately generate a couple millions of images and ground truth in fairly diverse environments and rapidly tune our perception to adapt to the new sensors. Real data, of course, is still required, but its production, which comes from the factory I described before, doesn't get the transition anymore. You can start moving to the new sensors without waiting for real data. And when real data comes in, the delta is much lower. So beyond sensor changes, synthetic data is also incredibly useful to experiment with different ground truth approaches because you can tune and produce different types of ground truth for free again. Another thing I want to show is the end-to-end AV simulation aspect of things. So once the models have been trained, whether on real or synthetic data, and deployed, our maglev platform enables our developers to simulate the end-to-end AV stack with Drive Sim. So a list of things it lets us do. Number one, run the environment on a node or a set of nodes on the cluster in a fully distributed fashion. Nodes can be hardware in the loop, where you literally have the SoC that runs in the car embedded into a rack in the data center, and you're running simulation against it. Or it can be in a purely software-based way, running on arbitrary GPUs. The environment here is served to our devs via a remote desktop experience, which you see streamed on the video now. In it, a dev can pause, play the simulator, change code, and rerun, and most importantly, run our Drive debugger next to it in real time. So I'll fast forward the video a little bit to show you that. So in this instance here, you can see our stack on the left side, essentially driving in this fully simulated environment. On the right side, you see the Drive debugger running in real time. So all the signals are streamed, and the developer can essentially interact with that, pause, play, and really tune every aspect of the stack. So at this point, based on everything I've said, you have the ability to essentially train a full AV stack completely in simulation and then test it end-to-end and put it together end-to-end. That really speeds up the development pace by orders of magnitude. All right, so I showed you the three most important workflows we have in our AV development: data-driven, fleet-driven, and sim-driven. The result for us is pretty simple. We're now enabling our AV team to produce AIs that can learn natively in 3D world coordinates and predict all the useful attributes of the world, whether it's the road markings, the vehicles around, the ego car, trucks, pedestrians, and so on, fully build up a representation of the world that's in 3D and enable our stack to drive fully autonomously in that world. On the left here, you can see our predictions, and on the right, how it all comes together with this kind of like 3D confidence view that our system produces in real time as we drive. We just spent the last 20 minutes or so walking you through the amazing MLOps and Software 2.0 platform we're developing at NVIDIA called maglev. Maglev is at the center of enabling our AV strategy at NVIDIA. We're on a path to deploying this software at a mind-blowing scale in 2024 with our first official partner, Mercedes-Benz. The in-car platform will come in two flavors and scale from level 2 plus autonomy to level 3, where you have a fully hands-off experience driving on the highway, for instance. In these two flavors, they're going to be shipped on pretty much every vehicle that Mercedes builds in 2024 and beyond. So our NVIDIA stack will be deployed at that scale. One of the core aspects of the program is, of course, the large variety of vehicles that we'll have to support. If you think of Mercedes-Benz as a brand, they have a whole range of vehicles ranging from coupe to mid-size sedans to large SUVs to minivans and so on. So that makes the problem even more challenging and exciting. And that's where a robust MLOps process and platform is completely fundamental to scale and adapt our AV software. And keep in mind that this software will have to run in pretty much every country where Mercedes-Benz drives today. So that's quite a lot. Thank you all for tuning in. If you have any question or interest, please reach out to me on Twitter. I'm sharing my link here. Thank you all for listening.